Okay, welcome to the AO2 video for genetics. Again, just a quick recap of the XYY supermale. The XYY supermale has got several pieces of evaluation. Part of the problem is that it's quite an old theory now. It was developed in the 1960s, so you can talk about temporal validity. It was only based on a sample of 314 people. They were patients. The request was based on common knowledge and stereotypes. The media took it completely out of context. That Richard Speck used it as an alibi. That it was published before testing, so you've got a problem with peer review in the scientific process there. That it later then had to be retracted, and that there is no supporting evidence for this theory. What we'll look at in the lesson is how these interact with one another. Looking more at the AO2 for twin and adoption studies, the AO2 comes from Miles and Carey, who carried out a meta-analysis, so a summary study of 24 studies into twin and adoption. Most studies had relied on parental or participant self-report of aggression, so they weren't actually measuring or observing aggression, it was all self-report of aggressive tendencies, although some did involve observation. The results suggested a very strong genetic influence, and that, again, they agreed with the finding that up to about 50% of somebody's aggression is probably genetic. Age differences are notably important, though, with both genes and family environment being influential in determining aggression in youth, but in later ages the influence of your rearing environment decreased and the influence of genetics increased. So potentially in child, their environment is really important, but as you grow up, that environment becomes less important and your genes really do start to take over. And later, a meta-analysis done more recently in 2002 combined the results of a larger sample of studies, 51, and concluded that aggressive behaviour was largely a product of genetics. In this study, as with Miles and Carey, several variables like age and assessment method for aggression moderated the genetic influence, suggesting that, again, although genetics seems to be important, about 50% of the variance, there are other factors at play here and it isn't just genetics. Looking at MAOA, a second study done by Caspi linking MAOA to aggressive behaviour involved 500 male children. Researchers discovered a variant of the gene associated with high levels and the variant associated with low levels. They seem to find there is a genetic that will make you high MAOA and there is one that will make you low. Those with low levels of MAOA were much more likely to exhibit antisocial behaviour, but, and what's really important here, only if they'd been maltreated as children. So it wasn't that the MAOA is going to be the factor, it's a predisposing factor that may be triggered by an environmental cue. Children with high levels of MAOA who were maltreated and those with low levels who were not maltreated didn't display this. So it seems like the maltreatment isn't the cause. MAOA on its own isn't the cause, it's the combination of the two, and that there is that interaction between genes and environment. We do need to think about methods in here as well, and we'll talk more about this in the lesson, but you need to think not just what the methodological issues are, as there are a few in this essay, but what the impact has been on the AO1. Don't just state methodological issues. The big part of this is going to be the nature versus nurture debate. Which side of the debate is this? Obviously genetics is on the nature side, and then thinking about the strength of your so what there. So why is nature a good thing? Why is it a bad thing? How is it a problem? And how does it link into the AO1 is going to be a key part of our lesson. There is also evidence to come from animals here. Studies of aggressive behaviour in non-human animals have an important role in helping us understand aggression. Rodents offer an advantage of experimental manipulation to test the effects of specific genes. We can't do genetic modification of human beings, it's unethical, so we do it on rats instead. Manipulations involve selective breeding and knockout techniques, where you eliminate a specific gene. An example of such a study that has potential for understanding was done by Young, and these researchers claim to have identified a genetic mutation that causes violence in mice, and they've nicknamed it fierce. has a range of effects on mice, including extremely violent behaviour towards others. A counterpart of this gene does exist in humans, so they are hypothesising that potentially they may have found the aggressive gene. So again, just to think about your AO2 here, there is a small amount of AO2 to go in amongst twin and adoption studies, some to talk about for the super male, there is some for MAOA, and then there is a lot of IDA to do with nature versus nurture, animals, and we will finish off with determinism. Okay, thank you.